Have you ever thought about turning your love for social media into a full-time job? Perhaps you asked yourself whether a social media manager is actually a good career. Well, today I'm diving into all aspects of the job of a social media manager for you to decide whether it's actually a good career. Hey, my name is Mil and I own a multi-six-figure social media agency, and I now help social media managers do the same. Now, if you're an aspiring social media manager after this video, or even now, then make sure you download my free roadmap to becoming a six-figure social media manager that I will drop right here. Now, let's get started. Now, before we dive in, let's talk about what it actually means to be a social media manager as a career, right? Now, believe it or not, this is actually one of the most frequently asked questions I see, especially here on my YouTube channel, where people are at loss for what they're actually responsible for, right? And it's not so crazy because there are so many aspects to social media. Different brands will have different requirements, right? Charging from $300 to $30,000. And so there's a lot of confusion around the job of a social media manager. So to simplify what a social media manager does, they execute a social media strategy on behalf of a brand, right? While they're managing their social media pages. Now, again, this is still very broad, right? Managing. So what does this entail? Usually this includes some type of creativity, content creation, right? For the social media pages. Now, a social media manager does need to be up to date with what's going on these platforms, right? The latest trends, reading into the latest features that are coming out, algorithms and whatnot, and manage the page as they post content, schedule content, usually respond to the community, keep track of comments that are coming in, what people are saying, what they're liking, right? All those types of things to kind of manage what's actually going on. Now, you do notice that I said in the beginning that they're not responsible for strategy, and not every single social media manager has the capabilities to actually create a social media strategy. So if you're in-house, usually this means that you have a marketing director or someone that oversees the bigger picture, right? Strategy. And so it really depends. There are a lot of social media managers who do offer strategy, and it does allow you to charge more money, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a social media manager is responsible for that. They're really an executor inside the brand. Now, please do know that this role can vary greatly from company to company, and whether you're in-house or freelance, right? And so you do want to be flexible about that, depending on what direction you're going. Now, if you're an aspiring social media manager and want all the resources that I use in my agency, from lead generation all the way to client onboarding questionnaires and ongoing client management, then check out my Thriving Social Media Manager bundle. This is perfect for you with all the resources that you can purchase below. So now that we have gotten clear, right, on what a social media manager is and what they do, let's talk about some of the pros of being a social media manager. Now, in my opinion, it might be a bit biased, but I think it can be a lot of fun. It's a great creative outlet because it allows you to be so creative all the time, right? And so, in my opinion, that's a lot of fun. If you're not a creative person, you don't like to create, come up with creative ideas, this may not be necessarily for you, or you may not think this is a great career. Another thing is that it's such an in-demand skill right now, right? Every single person is on social media or needs to be on social media. We have seen it with COVID happen, right? That businesses all went off online, right? Because they couldn't be offline with our customers. And social media and the internet and marketing plays such a big role in people's day-to-day lives that the opportunity is endless, right? And it's such an in-demand skill. So that's another real big pro, because people are always looking for people like you to manage their social media. Now, another thing is you typically are in a very flexible work environment. Typically, this can be done remotely, right? Or maybe fully remote, hybrid. If you work for yourself, even more flexibility. And this is all because we can work from our phone, from our laptop, whatever you name it. And this gives us so much flexibility with our job as a social media manager, which I particularly love. I can travel and still continue to do my work. I can be in the car, right? And while this can be a downside too, it's great to be flexible with your job, whichever road you decide to go. It's a very engaging career and work. work, right? So that's another thing. So no day looks the same, right? We talked a bit about it earlier, being creative and how I love being creative, coming up with new ideas. Social media will really challenge you. I always say what works today may not work tomorrow because things are changing so fast. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like a challenge, you may absolutely hate that part. But I personally really love that part because it allows me to do different things every day and no day looks the same, right? Especially on social media. It keeps me on my toes, which I think is a great part of my job. Now, and lastly, I think you can have such a huge impact because social media is the front line. You are the front facing the brand, whether that's not necessarily with your face, but you are the person that's in the front lines, right? Working and talking on behalf of a brand online. And I think that's a pretty cool role to have. If you're doing great things online, people love the brand online, you know, that all comes down and back to their social media manager. Now that we have covered some of the pros, right, let's look at some of the cons about being a social media manager. It's not all fun and games, it's not all rainbows and sunshines. So what are some of the cons when it comes to a career in social media? So the first thing, it can be high pressure. So if you do not like any pressure at all, social media, again, keeps you on your toes, and clients often expect results, right? They have set KPIs and data they want to see. And so it can definitely come with a lot of pressure, and I think all my social media managers here in the audience can confirm that there is this sense of pressure around it to perform, right? Even when we have the algorithms that we don't always control and other things that may not always work in our favor. And so you are constantly battling to get your clients the best result or the brand you work for in-house. Secondly, you're always learning. You're never a true expert. And so I think this is a downside for a lot of people because it never ends, right? And that also brings me to another point, that social media can really be 24/7. And it can be really hard to set boundaries, right? When you want to have quote unquote work-life balance that I personally don't really believe in, but social media is ongoing, right? It's on your phone, it's on all devices, which makes it flexible, but also is really hard to set boundaries with your work. And we all know what impact social media has on your mental health. So that's another downside. It can also be isolating. While it's super remote, and I personally work from home every single day in my office right here, it can be very isolating. I personally don't even spend that much time socializing outside or in person, right? I spend so much time behind the screen, behind the camera like this. And so it can be an isolating work environment, especially if you love to work with people. Now, my team is fully remote. I love working with them remote. We chat every day, hop on calls and things like that. But obviously that's not really quite the same as in-person work. So if you love to have a team in person, this may be a huge downside for you. Now, based on all these given insights, I do want to talk about some of the growth potentials and opportunities that I think are super exciting as a social media manager, as a full-time career for you. Now, one of the best things is that we already talked about how in demand social media is, right? And this is not only helpful for you to offer as a service, but also, you know, for yourself being a content creator. So I see myself as an agency owner first, then I see myself as a content creator and quote unquote influencer, where I can do my own brand partnerships. I create content for brands on the side that are not necessarily working with the agency, right? And so there is so much growth opportunity if this is already your job and you're also building your own strong personal brand alongside of that, because you're already doing this for a living, right? And there are so many opportunities that come along with having a strong personal brand. Brand partnerships, speaking opportunities, earned media, you name it, all the growth lays in your personal brand. And so I'm personally so grateful that I do this for a living because I run all of my personal brands across all platforms, including YouTube right here with you. And it has really paid off for me. There are always doors that are opening for me. There are opportunities that I never thought I would have. And so that has been really, really great. Another thing that I would want to add to this and wrap up with is that, especially because there's so much growth in this field, you can always pivot, right? You don't have to be a social media manager forever, but you can become a strategist. You can become a content creator. You can offer so many different services in this field that I personally believe there's so much opportunity. And in my opinion, is a good career, but it really depends on what you're looking for and what aligns with you and your skill sets and things you want to develop in your career. But again, if you want to kick this off and are an aspiring social media manager, then my Aspiring Thriving Social Media Manager bundle is for you. It's just $99 and includes all of the resources that I actually use inside of my agency, so you don't have to come up with them yourself. So this will really give you a head start in your career as a social media manager. And if you find this helpful, make sure you comment below, subscribe, because I post weekly free trainings for social media managers. I'll see you next week.